Hello and welcome back to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Gardiner Houlgate Auctioneers again, and we're going to have a look at their latest catalogue for their musical instrument auction. So we've already seen 3 other catalogues recently which were kind of pertaining to guitars. This is the kind of general musical instrument sale. This is actually kind of going live and finishing tomorrow on the 11th of March 2022, and today is the 10th, so literally less than kind of 24 hours at this point, and this auction will be happening. So I'll put a link in the description. If you're interested, then check it out. Usual buyer's premium here, 22% or 26.4 I think with VAT. Obviously this is based in the UK, this particular auction. If you're looking for something to be kind of shipped to you, if you want to know the fees for that, if you're in the UK or in Europe or international, then check all the specs and things up here. All of the information is there. We have 430 instruments in this catalogue, so it's quite a lot, and we're just going to try and plough through really and see what we've got. This particular catalogue is usually the most interesting or most diverse, I would say, that we come across in the kind of the whole year really of auctions. Any of these kind of general Gardiner Houlgate musical instrument auctions usually have some really interesting stuff. I've had a brief look over this catalogue before, but I can't really remember much, so this will be like looking at it all over again. So anyway, that's enough of me rambling. I'm a little bit tired, so it's probably why I'm not making too much sense, but let's crack on. Okay, let's dig in. So we have a square piano by Jacob Ball, London, 1792. Case of mahogany with holly and stained fruitwood stringing. Extensive marking on case exterior, the lid with a rosewood plaque let into the right back approximately 19 centimeters. The action complete but requiring extensive attention. There you go. Labelled inside, Jacobus Ball, Facete 1792, Duke Street, Grosvenor Square. Interesting. Let's have a look at the pictures. 1,000 to 1,500 is the estimate. That seems incredibly low, but then if the action needs to be rebuilt, then I'm sure you've got to take that into consideration, but interesting nevertheless. A melodeon or reed organ by George Prince and Company, Buffalo, NY, circa 1855. Case of rosewood, 4-octave keyboard there. Got a patent for divided swell, 1855. Old marks, just playing. 3 accidentals absent. 150 to 250 is the estimate, so it's not too bad. Interesting looking thing. Square piano by Christopher Gaynor, London, 1784. Mahogany case, multiple stringing and satinwood crossbanding. 5-octave keyboard there. Keyboard is sold with a copy of G.S. Gadd, The British Art, Piano and Piano Design, Volume 1, and a bespoke account documenting the history of this pianoforte. 3 cracks in the soundboard, 1 slightly displaced over the rest plank, the others at the treble end under the strings. Appears restored, the dampers have been buffed out. It's hard to know which are original and which are modern replacements. One suspects that most of the latter. Hammer leathers appear untouched, the stop levers and their brass levers are new. None are working properly. Exterior lid is discoloured and faded, so this also needs some attention. Also with 1,000 to 1,500 estimate, so another interesting piano there. Now we have a C.F. Martin 6A Bowlback mandolin made in the USA, 1919. 800 to 1,200 is the estimate there. Interesting enough. 1998 Bruce Weber bridge mandolin made in the USA, 800 to 1,200 there. A Maui music by Peter Lieberman CK45 ukulele out of Coerwood, 3 to 500. Michael Kelly LP145 left-handed mandolin made in Korea. This is fairly standard kind of trade instrument, 150 to 200 pounds there. Set of 3 decorative prints. I think you can see those online quite often. Stag handmade mandolin, model M50E, red burst finish. That's pretty standard modern mandolin. Contemporary pear-shaped mandola, unlabelled, with a gig bag. Samick Artist Series Edition 5-string banjo. 19th century lute, the satinwood bowlback with 11 ribs. That's a lute guitar, isn't it? Of that kind that we see before. Not really particularly interesting in my opinion. Suzuki Melodian M32C in its case. Windsor popular model to 5-string banjo with 11-inch skin. I don't know a great deal about banjos, but we've seen some interesting ones over the last year and a bit. Contemporary 7-string Turkish saz, there, 15 to 30 pounds there. Contemporary student guitar, labelled Valencia, and a whole load of ukuleles. Old drum major's wooden and white metal mace, inscribed to the head, number 6 Coy Westminster Guild Training Corps, 60-inch long. Okay. Keach Banjolele banjo, a patent 219720-24, 6-inch skin. I'm really struggling to actually pronounce anything. Good Wendell Hall professional banjo ukulele, circa 1927. Martin & Co. T1K ukulele, serial number 23944. Sure this will be popular, £200 to £300. Martin Uke. John Gray and Son of London, Benares model banjo ukulele. There's a lot of banjo ukuleles, it's slightly unusual. Good Lewis Lacanal English System Concertino. We've went a bit wrong there. With 48 metal buttons on pierced inlaid rosewood ends. 5-fold leather gilt-tooled bellows, serial number 6904. Rosewood case, £500 to £700 there. That's interesting. Another good Lacanal and Co. soprano 2-row concertina there, £300 to £500. Small Hohner Signorina Grossi piano accordion, and a German ebonized button accordion there. Good Gibson RB175 5-string banjo, 11-inch skin. Quantity of various piano and drum tutor magazines, more popular music mags, we can go through that. Various kind of books, I'm sure some of those are probably quite interesting. Premier 5-piece drum kit, blue finish with cases. Old German fretted zither, by and labelled Stossel. We see these every now and then. This one's a little bit more different to some of the ones we see. Good Neapolitan mandolin, by and labelled Raphael Callis. It's not too bad, 1,000 to 1,500. Fake tortoiseshell mother of pearl. Inlaid scratch plate there. Interesting. Rare and unusual instrument circa 1830, by and inscribed Harp Kenner par Vandalist, Lutherie of Paris. That's interesting. Well, I have no idea what this is. 3,000 to 5,000. It's a curious thing. If anyone has any thoughts on this, it'd be interesting to hear them. I have no idea. Neapolitan mandolin, labelled Suzuki Mandolin. Interesting. Lacanal & Co. English Concertina, 48 key or button. Hebezka piano accordion with 80 bass buttons and 5 switches. Contemporary unnamed banjo, 11-inch skin. Good contemporary filed mandola with case. Old mandola unnamed with soft case. Contemporary Alhambra classical Spanish guitar and a bouzouki and a banjo ukulele. Large protection rackets cases for drums. Hohner Super Chromonica case mouth organs and some other bits. Interesting 2-string phono fiddle plectrum model there. Good non-peril perloid tenor banjo. That's an interesting one. It's slightly different. Clifford Essex and Son, the popular plectrum banjo. Old decorative piccolo balalaika with rosewood segmented back. This is slightly more interesting as these things go. Interesting head. 2 horse heads at the top. That's slightly curious. What's the estimate on that? 50 to 80. Okay. Suzuki Neapolitan Mandolin again. Weltmeister Stella piano accordion. Also a master tone small piano accordion with 8 bass buttons. Hohner Verdi 320 button accordion, 7 switches. Interesting case. Mazzini Super 120 button piano accordion. Hohner Carmen 2 24 button piano accordion. Old Laconico English concertina, also Bandonian and Harmony flute, all in need of restoration. Interesting. Be a good project lot for someone. Rare 19th century mahogany case portable campaign organ. That's interesting. Upon a gadrooned baluster column and curving cast iron tripod legs with 2 foliate pierced pedals stamped WFH. The instrument is in very poor condition with most of the ivory keys poorly aligned or split. See images for guidance. Personal viewing always advised. Still, that's pretty mad, isn't it? 250 to 300 pounds. Very curious. A late Victorian Edwardian portable harmonium, inscribed J.M. Hay, sterling. Guitar-shaped mandolin labelled Moreno, made in Saxony. Okay. Patent bowed zither, circa 1890, stamped J. Poo, Altona, under the top of the fingerboard. Interesting. Labelled Violinette. Interesting. The extra neck there. Rare lyre mandolin by and labelled Tipaldi Brothers, importers of genuine Neapolitan mandolinos, New York. Slightly, that's a curious one. 3 to 500. Portuguese guitarra, circa 1900, labelled João Miguel Andrade Lisboa. That's pretty cool. 2 to 300. Definitely interesting. 2 Neapolitan mandolins in need of restoration. Ooh. 2 contemporary different size Rebecs for restoration and finishing. 2 Italian Bowlback mandolins in need of restoration. It's odd that they don't show the pictures of the bowls. Unusual Mandriola 12-string mandolin with fluted back. Look at that. A whole load of books, including the Northumbrian Piper's Pocket book. Various items, 2 leather satchels, tambourines, child's toy piano, very curious. Rosewood concert zither with geometric foliate, mother of pearl, inlaid sound hole. These things we see all the time. Various music stands for guitar, saxophone and case, etc, etc. A box of various guitar and accordion straps and other kind of stuff. Antique large wooden church organ pipe, 4 to 4.5 inches high. The Jettel banjo ukulele, and a Romanian bowed psaltery. Interesting, really is a lot of banjo ukuleles in this auction. Carla branded ukulele, a model KAFMTEC 908, and a contemporary ukulele labelled made by Paul Hathaway. Both instruments appear in good condition with only minor surface marks but no serious issues. Interesting. Tanglewood pear-shaped mandolin labelled Union Series. The Whirly Windsor banjo ukulele. Also Savannah banjo ukulele. And another banjo mandolin. So many banjo related kind of instruments. The Whirly Windsor Gem Junior banjo with 11-inch skin. Windsor number 6 5-string banjo with 9-inch skin. Ukulele banjo with 8-inch skin and red marble finish. Good contemporary set of Bruegel pipes made by Jim Parr. Farrand and Vote portable folding preacher organ. Interesting, a lot of curious organ type things. Victorian mahogany adjustable music stand. Another music stand there. Good contemporary small 34-string harp, 49.5-inch high. It's from the early music shop, so. Okay. Sebastian Erard Gothic Model 2 Rosewood Concert Harp, 1000 to 1500. It's got a lot of good amount of pictures there. Looks like a nice column there. Yeah, Gothic hexagonal gilded wooden column decorated with figures playing musical instruments. Very nice. Harp is listed in the Erard Ledger as being sold to J. Campbell Esquire of 20 Sussex Square, Hyde Park, London, April 1867. Photocopy of this ledger entry is sold with the harp. The harp will need a new soundboard. The volume control pedal is missing. It is in unrestored condition with some mouldings missing. See images for guidance. That's quite interesting. Yep. 1000 to 1500. Definitely interesting columns. Very nice. Okay. Fine mid-19th century mahogany grand piano by and inscribed Bosselot and Fille, Marseille. Okay. 2 long splits in the soundboard and a crack through the lid. 1500 to 2500. It's interesting. Something was withdrawn, so who knows what that was. Loads of books about kind of music. A 19th century guitar shaped 6-string hurdy-gurdy with satinwood back and sides. Condition is generally a little poor. Evidence of treated woodworm in the head. Well, you don't want worm in the head, do you? Definitely looks like it's suffered a fair bit there, one could say, from worm. Probably more than just a little, so interesting. Small late 18th, so early 19th century guitar shaped 6-string hurdy-gurdy. General condition poor. Once again, some worm issues. But some interesting designs. Definitely a curious one. What's the estimate there? 5 to 800. Interesting. Alto saxophone neck and some other kind of bits and bobs. Noble artist silver-plated flute belonging to Peter King. Okay. Freddie Gregory gold-plated alto saxophone mouthpiece. Okay. This mouthpiece was commissioned by Peter King to be made by the legendary and world-renowned master mouthpiece maker Freddie Gregory to his own personal specifications in the early 1990s. It was then played by Peter for the rest of his career, helping him achieve his unique and distinctive sound. Okay, there you go. Yanagisawa Elemona soprano saxophone with detachable neck from the estate of Peter King. Okay. Another Yanagisawa 991 tenor saxophone. Another one from Peter King. Fine Peter King model, Yanagisawa A9932Z alto saxophone with sterling silver neck and bell. This was Peter's working saxophone from 2001 to 2021, described in his own words: "Ever since receiving my alto saxophone in 2001, I have played nothing else. It's simply the best alto sax I've ever played by far. The quality of tone, intonation and beauty of the actions far surpasses any other horn I've played. It's an outstanding instrument." Peter King. Okay. Interesting. Fine Summer alto saxophone in gold lacquer, circa 1966. Another working saxophone for Peter from 1966 to 2001, so that's fairly serious. All his historic recordings before switching to his Yanagisawa. So there you go, that's important if you're a big Peter King fan. Small quantity of new and old saxophone mouthpieces and some kind of other bits there. Fine silver flute made by and stamped the Muramatsu flute, 2,000 to 2,500. There is the estimate. Interesting miniature brass saxophone by and stamped Calason in Milano, made in Italy. Yeah? Interesting, 12 inches high. Curious little thing. Artemis gold lacquered alto saxophone. Does this have any other interest? No, so we can just crack on. Dolmetsch great bass recorder, stamped Dolmetsch, made in England. Good contemporary Yamaha brass and copper coloured trombone. Contemporary Ganassi F alto Renaissance style recorder. Also a contemporary Dolmetsch tenor recorder and a Chinese flute. 4X student sonata clarinets. X student buffet crampon and C clarinets. Some more buffet crampon and C clarinets. 6 various X student clarinets, Boozy and Hawks, etc. Moek bass recorder with crook. This lot is subject to 20% VAT on the hammer price. Okay, interesting. 4X student metal flutes, 2 buffet crampon and C, and a Hawks and a Yamaha. There you go. Interesting. 4X student JP silver plated cornets with mouthpieces. Another 4 JP silver plated cornets. 5X student gold lacquered cornets. 3X student cornets by JP Blessing and Prelude by Back. Something else as well. A buffet crampon and C Paris silver plated C Melody saxophone there, with a sturdy wooden case. Cocoswood flute by and stamped Ruddle Cart and Co. Limited. Old silver plated BM symphonic sousaphone. Good old sousaphone. Don't think we saw, the last time we saw them I think was on the Skinner's auction. I think we saw a sousaphone, I think quite popular in the US. The Triumphonic silver plated double B flat class A tuba, manufactured by the Salvationist Publishing and Supplies Limited, London. Pair of Bassoon Westminster clarinets there. Interesting German bassoon, circa 1835, unstamped, with unusual keywork comprising 15 brass keys. Okay, interesting. We like oddities, £500 to £800. So Fine early 18th century English dark stained boxwood and ivory oboe, unsigned but possibly by Stainsby Senior or Bradbury, with silver keys, 23 inches overall. Good. Cocoswood 8-key left-handed flute by and stamped C. Nicholson, improved Clementi & Co. London. Cocoswood 7-key flute by and stamped C. Nicholson, improved by J. Prowse, Hanover Street, London. Boxwood and ivory C. clarinet by and faintly stamped Rave Bordeaux. French chorale brass horn with third valve sending by and stamped Milleru Brevet. Good brass cornet by and stamped Muller à Lyon, circa 1835. 1000 to 1400. With 2 Stoessel valves and within a fitted wooden case with 6 crooks, 2 tuning bits, mouthpiece and music lyre. That's quite cool. I like the case. Good brass cornet stamped Darche, Faire des Concerts and Theatres de Paris, circa 1835, with 2 Stoessel valves within a fitted case with 4 crooks, 3 tuning bits, mouthpiece and music lyre. So probably come from the same collection. And again, brass cornet by and stamped Barche, Paris, circa 1850, with 3 Stoessel valves and within a fitted case 6 crooks, 3 tuning bits, mouthpiece and music lyre. Interesting. Heinrich contemporary bass recorder with crook. Good buffet R13 green line B flat clarinet, stamped buffet crampon. This clarinet has been in possession of the same player for many years and has been serviced annually. Actually, what is the estimate on that? 500 to 700. 4 old piccolos with nickel keys. Old boxwood flute unnamed and 12 nickel keys on wooden blocks. Blackwood piccolo by and stamped Boozy and Hawks. Boxwood flute by and stamped M. Oppenheim, Mansell Street, London. Boxwood flute by and stamped C. Gerock, 79 Cornhill, London. Blackwood flute unnamed. Blackwood flute stamped T. Kroger, London. Cocoswood flute unnamed with 8 nickel keys. Good cocoswood flute by and stamped S.A. Chapel, Sycamore, Patente, 52 New Bond Street, London. Good cocoswood flute by and stamped Metzler, London. Blackwood flute by and stamped Hawks and Son, Denman Street, in fact. Blackwood flute by and stamped J. Wallace, 35 Houston Road, in London. Ebonite flute by and stamped Ruddle Cart & Co. Cocoswood flute by and stamped Eve Staff, London. It's a lot more instruments than I thought. Cocoswood flute unnamed. Good boxwood flute by and stamped Button & Co, London. Good Blackwood flute by and stamped Blackman, 193 Waterloo. Blackwood flute by and stamped Metzler & Co Limited. Cocoswood flute by and stamped Ruddle and Cart. Cocoswood flute by and stamped Metzler & Co. Good Blackwood flute unnamed with silver foliate engraved keys, I presume. Cocoswood flute by and stamped Ruddle Cart & Co. Good Blackwood flute by and stamped Goulding and Diamant, Soho Square, London. Good Blackwood flute by Alexander Liddell and stamped with an A under the C sharp key. Okay. Boxwood flute by and stamped Goulding and Co, London. Ebonite flute by and stamped Ruddle and Cart and Co. Rosewood oboe by and stamped A Morton, London. Yamaha YE B321 brass tuba with 2 Yamaha mouthpieces. Boxwood and ivory clarinet by and stamped W Millhouse, London. Blackwood flute with ivory embouchure head section, unnamed. Boxwood and ivory B-flat fife by and stamped Bilton, London, with 1 square brass key. Also an unnamed 6-key piccolo with ivory head joint. Single Boxwood flageolet with ivory mouthpiece by and stamped Upcott, Edgware Road, London. French ebony and ivory mounted single flageolet by and stamped Thiberville Frère Ain. Boxwood and ivory double flageolet by and stamped Bainbridge and Wood, Holborn Hill, London. Interesting and rare 18th century small bird flageolet with ebony and ivory mounts. Another lot that has been withdrawn. Wow, over 70 ex-school children's contemporary small size violins in mostly playable condition. That is one of the larger lots I've seen. A load of cases and a load of bows. So interesting. 10 various contemporary full size and 3/4 size instruments, all pretty standard there. 18th century Italian double violin case with brass studded borders and carrying handle, 100 to £200. I suspect that will probably go for a bit more, because people do like these older cases, and the 18th century Italian case is quite rare. Late 19th century German Stradivari copy. Oh, yeah, same pictures there are doubled up, bearing a repairer's label dated 1892. Comes with 2 bows. Mark Nickerkin violin, circa 1920, with a Ruggieri label. I'm not sure why all these pictures are doubled up. That's a bit strange. Early 20th century German violin, importer's label B&J of New York. German violin, circa 1930. Double viola violin case with green velvet plush. It's quite a nice case actually, not too bad. Double viola violin case, new old stock. Interesting. These might yeah, just look quite nice. And another old one, so that might do well. Small quantity of stringed instrument makers wood, including maple, ebony and pine, 20 to £40. Seems slightly optimistic, but you never know. French 3/4 size violin, circa 1910. Two new unfinished necks and scrolls with Hardanger and lion head finials, also Hardanger fingerboard. Okay, interesting. Quantity of old cello tail pieces, pegs and bridges. 6 old violin bodies, 5 front and back plates, also some other bits, the bargain box of stuff there. Small contemporary Romanian viola. Late 19th century Stradivari copy violin, fairly standard. Child's Stradivari copy violin, also a contemporary Child's violin outfit with bows and case. So you can see, I'm not sure why all these pictures are always doubled up, but there we go. 3/4 size violin, 1930. Also a Medifino 3/4 size violin, that can be fairly decent. Mid 20th century guitar shaped cornerless violin. 8 old violin cases. 20th century child's violin there. Doesn't look too bad. 19th century German violin with an Armati label. It's pretty standard. Contemporary English violin labelled Brian Phillips Brearley, Nottingham 1994. Old violin stamped Remy to the inner back. Good 19th century flamed mahogany fitted double case with a plaque for Withers of London. 19th century German Stradivari copy violin. Early 20th century Stradivari copy viola with a Bows & Co musical depot. Bombay, interesting. 25 sets of good quality new violin pegs. Quantity of violin and cello accessories. Mid 20th century Czechoslovakian violin, also a contemporary kind of violin there. We don't get to see the backs, but just many pictures of the front, a bit weird. 19th century violin, unlabelled. Looks slightly odd shape there. Early 20th century Stradivari copy violin. German violin, labelled Louis Dolling. Early 20th century violin, branded Steiner, with an interesting head, Art Nouveau style figurehead. Contemporary Bohemian violin, labelled Hermann Schartel. So far nothing too outrageous. 19th century Bavarian violin with carved lion's head. 19th century violin labelled John Betts. It's 200 to 300 is the estimate there. Early 20th century violin with unusual Art Nouveau style head. There you go, we've got more weird heads going on there. Can't really see much, to be honest. It's pretty difficult to actually see what's going on there. I have no idea. 19th century violin. Late 19th century Bavarian violin, another one with a lion's head there. Slightly, actually similar to the other one, but maybe a little bit more interesting. Late 19th century double purfled violin. Okay. 100 to 200 there. Interesting early violin labelled and inscribed. This instrument was converted by C.G. Everell using his own design in 2021. Okay. Early 19th century Steiner copy, pretty much the same as. 19th century violin labelled Michael Deaconet. Interesting back on that one. Violin circa 1890. Early 20th century Stradivari copy violin. Early 20th century German violin. Late 19th century German violin. German violin labelled Neuner and Hornsteiner. Mid 19th century violin, possibly English. The pictures are all very shiny. Late 19th century violin labelled Boleslaw Vorchudovich, Wolverhampton, England. Decorative inlaid fingerboard there. 100 to £150. Interesting. Late 19th century violin labelled Boleslaw Vorchudovich. Same kind of fingerboard again. Interesting. Could potentially be decent. Another one from the same maker. Boleslaw Vorchudovich, Wolverhampton. Very curious. And on to the next lot. Late 19th century violin. That's actually quite curious. These F holes are kind of look quite early, like almost like a linerola type thing, like a kind of Venetian early kind of 16th century kind of, or before kind of type thing. It's quite curious. Early 20th century violin. Violin circa 1900. German violin labelled Wilhelm Dürer. Late 19th century German viola labelled Louis Dolling. Early 20th century primitive style viola. Definitely looks a bit odd. Interesting and unusual 8-string violin with 4 strings above the fingerboard and 4 sympathetic strings beneath. Ebonite oblong double violin case. Large quantity of violin fittings. I think this is the gap, and then we get onto the better bowed stuff, because that first stuff was pretty rubbish. Early 20th century spelter figure modelled as a standing lady playing a violin. It's actually quite nice. And also another smaller figure. Yep. Early 20th century Neumann Hornsteiner violin, which needs to be assembled again. German violin circa 1920, with an Edward Withers case, and another 19th century Neumann Hornsteiner violin. Early 19th century violin labelled and stamped Steiner. Late 19th century violin there. Interesting 19th century violin in need of restoration. And a mid 20th century 3/4 size violin. I mean, that is potentially interesting. A lot of restoration work needed, but it's interesting violin. German 7/8 size violin, circa 1910. Good half-size violin labelled Antonio Martello. A load of cases, more cases, more cases, whole load of books, Henley Dictionary and a few other books there. Henley Dictionary again, it's pretty standard. Henley and a few other books again, more books here. Samuel Zhang picture dictionary of instruments, and it's a load of pictures in that, but it's a curious one. Nicholas Sackman, the Messiah violin book. Another few books. The Benjamin Banks book is really good. Golden Age of Violin Making in Spain, which is a book that I'd really like to get hold of, and this book is absolutely huge. Like, I can't explain how big this book is. It's really massive. I think I say that in every auction, but it's really good. Like, literally the pictures are full size. It's brilliant, really nice. Carlo Chiesa and Dwayne Rosengard Stradivari Legacy book. It's Scarabato kind of book. More books, Benjamin Banks and a few others. Here's the Hill Bow Makers book. David Rattray, Violin Making in Scotland, that's a good book. Kevin Coates, Geometry, Proportion and the Art of Luthery. Banks book there, always very good. Henley again, some famous composer etchings. Valentinelli Giovanni, Portrait of Street Busker, one-man band. Okay. 18 planks of Pernambuco, there you go. 18 planks of Pernambuco again. I'm sure this stuff will go pretty well. 18 planks of Pernambuco. More planks of Pernambuco. 18 planks of Pernambuco. And more planks of Pernambuco. 18 planks of Pernambuco. Wood. Oh, the bow wood comes from the workshop of master bow maker Brian Alvey, ex-Hills, following rationalisation of his stock. So he's basically getting rid of rubbish stuff. And there's more Pernambuco as well. More Pernambuco and more. I mean, this stuff is probably all very, at least useful anyway in some kind of way. More Pernambuco. I'm sure that'll all get brought up a whole load of bows there. More bows, more bows, more bows, loads more bows, more bows, and more bows. There might be some good bows in there, but more bows, probably a bit of a labour of love. More bows. Oh, we should have got a bit carried away there. German nickel mounted violin bow, and another kind of one, nothing too outrageous, I don't think. 3 German nickel mounted violin bows, 2 with ivory frogs. Interesting that they don't show you the heads on that one, that's a bit strange. A whole load of bows again, so we can skip that. 2 nickel mounted cello bows. Oh, we should probably look at the heads, why not, while we're here. Bow stamped Louis Bazin, and another without any markings. 7 nickel mounted violin bows, 5 old nickel mounted cello bows, 4 silver mounted violin bows, 1 indistinctly stamped. That's interesting, 60 to 100, I'm sure that'll probably do quite well. German nickel mounted bow stamped Schillback, a few other kind of bows. Yep, could be interesting lots there. Contemporary Baroque bow, also a Knopf style bow stick, another inlaid bow. Violin bow stick stamped Serpi. 3 interesting experimental period bows. These bows are based on iconographic sources by Ronald Roberts, who was a craft teacher in Exeter. Okay. Interesting old double bass bow with bone adjuster and fruitwood frog. Okay. Interesting. Nickel mounted double bass bow, unstamped. Dragonetti style double bass bow, unstamped. Nickel mounted double bass bow, unstamped. Small quantity of bow, frog screws, nuts and slides, etc. 2 old nickel mounted double bass bows and a nickel mounted cello bow. German nickel mounted double bass bow, stamped H.R. Frechner, Mark Lukirkin. Good English silver mounted viola bow, by and stamped J&A Beer. Actually, let's just see that. This bow is also stamped 32D on the bottom of the handle under the frog. Okay. 3 to 5,000. Okay, that's pretty serious. French nickel mounted violin bow, by and stamped C. Thomason, 2 to 3,000 there. So we're getting into the serious zone now. German silver mounted violin bow, by and stamped H.R. Frechner, 1200 to 1800. Good English silver mounted violin bow, by and stamped George Darby. Nickel mounted violin bow stamped N. Lowry, Paris, 60 to 100. Silver mounted violin bow, unstamped. Silver mounted violin bow, unstamped. Silver mounted violin bow, indistinctly stamped. Silver and bone mounted violin bow, unstamped. 3/4 size silver mounted violin bow, unstamped. Silver and nickel mounted violin bow, faintly stamped. Nickel mounted viola bow of the Knopf school, unstamped. Interesting English silver mounted violin bow of the Tubbs family. Good English silver mounted viola bow, stamped Dodd. Interesting silver mounted violin bow with a round stick, probably English, circa 1850. Nickel mounted violin bow, stamped Chanot. There's some interesting bows, I think. German silver mounted violin bow, by and stamped Jules Heinrich Zimmermann. Gilt mounted cello bow of the Knopf school, unstamped. Gold mounted violin bow stamped taut. French nickel mounted violin bow stamped P. Hell. German violin bow probably by Ludwig Bauch for Karl Heinrich Knopf. General condition is poor. Late 19th century nickel mounted German violin bow in the Violin style. Interesting French violin bow, stick in the manner of FX taut. Interesting, 2 to 400. Interesting 19th century German bow, possibly by a member of the Knopf family. Some good information, I think. Silver mounted German violin bow by and stamped Otto Derschmidt. They're given good information in the condition for the bows. From what I've seen, good French silver mounted double vase bow stamped Albert Hansen. This bow was probably made by Morison, 300 to 500 there. That's interesting. German gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow stamped Swiss circa 1890. Good contemporary silver mounted violin bow by and stamped S. Kuhnler. Nickel mounted violin bow in need of restoration. Silver mounted violin bow unstamped, round stick. German silver mounted viola bow stamped Albert Nürnberger. Nickel mounted violin bow stamped Francois Lot. Nickel mounted violin bow stamped Louis Bazin. Stick is round. German silver mounted violin bow stamped E. Schubert. Nickel mounted violin bow faintly stamped. Nickel mounted violin bow stamped Allegro. Nickel mounted violin bow stamped Bauer. Nickel mounted violoncello bow unstamped. Small silver mounted cello bow unstamped. Silver mounted violin viola bow unstamped. Interesting early ivory mounted violin bow with Kramer style head unstamped. That is quite interesting. £400 to £800. Definitely has some kind of potential. Although the head of this bow has been pinned. Good English silver mounted viola bow by and stamped John W. Stagg. 1000 to 1400 there. Good English silver mounted violin bow by and stamped Taylor. Good English silver mounted violin bow by and stamped Roy Collins. Stick octagonal. French nickel mounted cello bow stamped Ari. English silver mounted cello bow by W.E. Hills and Son. This bow has a double pinned head that is stamped H under the handle and top of frog. German nickel mounted cello bow by and stamped R. Paysold. French violin bow of the Malines school, unstamped, 19th century. French violin bow of the Picat school, circa 1860. 1400 to 1800 there. French nickel mounted cello bow by and stamped Cuneo Huri. French nickel mounted cello bow by and stamped Cuneo Huri. French silver mounted violin bow by and stamped FN Vorin à Paris. 8,000 to 10,000 there. Bow is sold as certificate of authenticity from the Cabinet d'Art Chetier experts from 2021. Okay. Right, we're on to finally got out of the bow situation. That was getting a bit much. Fine English viola by and labelled, made by George Crask. Interesting, yes, a Crask viola, 4,000 to 6,000. We do like a bit of work by Mr. Crask. What a cool back actually on that. That's very nice. I think 4,000 to 6,000 is not bad. Labelled as well, sold by the Hills firm after his death, as many of the instruments of his were. Yeah, that's quite cool. I'm not sure how common Krask violas are, but that's interesting. I don't, if it goes for between 4 to 6, I think that's a pretty good price, really. Nice looking back. Good modern violin, inscribed L. Kapler to the inner back. French violin by and labelled Lutherie Artistique, Charles Fetique in Mircore. Scottish violin by and labelled, made by John Lowe, Glasgow, 1924. It's interesting enough. French violin by and labelled Lutherie Artistique, M. Quattro. Interesting head. Early 20th century Czechoslovakian violin. Good early 20th century French violin. French violin by and labelled Lutherie Artistique, Jean-Baptiste Collin. Surname missing from a label. Interesting early 19th century violin labelled Johann Christian Voigt. French violin by and labelled Léon Mougenot Gauche, 2,000 to 2,500 there. Interesting late 18th, early 19th century violin, restored and in need of further restoration. Well, that's unfortunate, isn't it? 250 to 450 there. 19th century violin in need of restoration with an Armati label, 200 to 400. Early 19th century violin restored and in need of further restoration, unlabelled. Mid 19th century violin bearing a repairer's label, Sidney Stowell, Exxon, 1939. Interesting late 18th, early 19th century violin labelled Carlo Bergonzi. Estimate 1,500, so 500 to 1,000. Interesting scroll on that. Interesting 19th century violin with indecipherable label. Quite nice back on that, actually. That's an interesting one, 300 to 500. Definitely curious. 19th century violin unlabelled, possibly English. Once again, that's fairly interesting. Early 20th century French violin stamped VO to the inner back, 1,000 to 1,500. Early 20th century French violin labelled the Bandon Mullins Stradivari model. Stroh model violin with aluminium horn and original leather case. Good early 20th century German viola, unlabelled. Good French violin by and labelled Jean-Baptiste Allot. Late 19th century Stradivari copy violin. German violin labelled A.K. Hüttel, Geigenmeister, Graslitz. Russian violin labelled Jules Heinrich Zimmermann, Moscow, 300 to 500. Early viola, probably Dutch, circa 1820, unlabelled. This particular kind of instrument, I think, has been in about 4 auctions now, so it's been around quite a long time. Good Scottish violin labelled Thomas Craig Aberdeen. Interesting violin labelled Alfredus Kappa. estimate 1200 to 1800. Fine and interesting French violin, labelled Pierre Paccarel. German violin by and labelled C.G. Schuster, Martin Kirkin. Interesting 19th century violin in need of considerable restoration, as they say, but it does look quite interesting. £300 to £500 is the estimate on that. Interesting 18th century violin labelled Cahusac. Interesting. 3 to 5,000. Sold with the photocopy of the internal inscriptions mentioned, also images online. Okay. That's curious. Good and rare Stroh type violin. Interesting. Good contemporary viola da gamba, unlabelled. Curious. Uncertain of origin. That's curious. Interesting early 20th century violin, possibly Hungarian. Interesting 19th century violin, unlabelled. Interesting strip all the way through the back. French violin by and labelled CHJB Colin Mazar, 800 to 1200. That will probably go for more than that. People like that. Interesting early 19th century German violin, stamped Seidel. This violin is the work of Johann Georg Seidel, about 1800, Newkirchen. Interesting. 500 to 800. Okay. German violin, circa 1890, with a Galliano label. Fine and interesting late 18th to early 19th century French violin, 4 to 8,000. Yeah, definitely looks fairly decent. Violin is sold with a French nickel mounted violin bow stamped CH Butholder Paris and another nickel mounted violin bow unstamped. Violin is being sold by the daughter of her late father, and she's written a moving tribute below about him and the violin. Okay. Christopher Shepherd, 1941 to 2018, lead violinist, Radio Light Orchestra, multi-instrumentalist, conductor, music lecturer and artist. Okay. My hope is that the violin will find a worthy owner who loves it as much as my father did. Well, hopefully, I mean, it looks like a very nice violin, so let's hope that that does happen. French violin labelled Lutherie Artistique, Jean-Baptiste Colin again. A violin labelled Carlo Donizelli, 4 to 600. Violin labelled JT Derazi, Miracle, 1500 to 2000 there. Good German violin labelled John Baptist Schweitzer. Okay. Late 19th century German violin labelled Benjamin Banks. Late 19th century German violin labelled Benjamin Banks, 1780, and stamped B Banks below the button. Violin stamped twice, Kohner Fields to the inner back. French violin unlabelled. Violin late 18th century, unlabelled, 4 to 600. Early 20th century German violin with pronounced edging, unlabelled. Early 20th century Strad copy violin. Interesting late 19th century German Maggini copy. Interesting violin by and labelled George Krask, 1500 to 2500. Interesting. Good French violin of the Calcin workshop, circa 1870, 1000 to 1500. Early 20th century violin, double purfling. Violin, French violin labelled F. Breton Brevet. I like that, little tassels. All violins should have those. Early Mittelwald viola, circa 1840, with carved lion's head. That's actually a very nice lion, actually. So that's quite cool. 800 to 1200. That's fairly interesting, actually. Russian violin, labelled Regard Rubus, Petersburg, 1850, 2 to 300. You do see these quite often. English double purple violin, by and labelled Art Replica of the Geo, Palomagini, made especially by Wilf Kilburn for his friend Jim Hunter of Mellica Lane, Moopham, Kent, 1974. Interesting. 250 to 350. French violin, circa 1890, with chevron banded outline. Okay. A German violin, by and labelled Matthias Neuner, Geigenmarker. 500 to 700 is the estimate. French JTL violin, circa 1890, labelled Gaspard Dufault Prugar. Interesting marquetry. Interesting head as well. It's quite curious. Good French violin, labelled Albrecht Dugard. And let's see what else we've got. Interesting Mittelwald violin, circa 1800, unlabelled. 1000 to 1500 is there. Good contemporary white cello case. And English cello, by and labelled, made by D.M. Brearley in Malvern, 1984. Instrument is in excellent condition. Well, that's good to know. Some good pictures. Contemporary Hungarian cello, labelled and retailed by Ruddle and Cart & Co. Dresden School 3/4 size cello, circa 1900. Seem to like lots of pictures of cellos. German cello of the Lowendiel School, circa 1890. German cello labelled Ferdinand Lang, Schombach, 1907. Early 20th century German 3/4 size cello. Early 20th century German 3/4 size cello. Good contemporary cello. Interesting late 18th century, so early 19th century English cello. Estimates 2 to 3000. That's a very nice, interesting scroll there. Slightly different to the usual. That could be quite a good potential buy. Neuner and Hornsteiner cello, circa 1890. Good German cello of the Schweitzer School, circa 1890. Quite a fair amount of cellos. Contemporary double bass, circa 1970. German flatback double bass, estimates 150 to £200. Late 19th century German double bass. Good late 19th century German cornerless double bass by and stamped Falero, painted Angelo Adolf to the inner back. Interesting. Good English double bass, probably by George Adolphe Chanot. That's definitely slightly more interesting than the usual that we see. 6 to 8,000 there is the estimate. Interesting kind of shape. with later neck and skull carved with the head of a classical lady. Base has been considerably reduced in size and the head and neck are much later. Interesting, it does look a little bit odd. Fine 19th century French double bass, probably by Gardiner Houlgate. Double bass is sold with a purchase receipt. Insurance valuation from Highfield Violins dated 21st and 24th August 1987. Bass back is flat. Insurance valuation undertaken by Moseley Violin 2019. Quite a lot of double basses for an auction actually. It's quite odd. Fine double bass X Roy Babington made by Albert Volkmann. 15 to 25,000 there. Whole load of documents here. Yeah, this double bass has been owned by professional musician Roy Babington since 1967, having previously been owned by Colin O'Brien, deceased of Stockton, who purchased it in Germany circa 1960. No history is known prior to 1960. Roy has been a professional musician since 1958 and was voted best British bassist in the Melody Maker Jazz Poll in 1974. There you go, it's pretty interesting. I'm quite surprised how many basses there are actually in this auction. And that's it. I think we're back at the end, aren't we? We're back at the beginning. So, yeah, that's it. We've completed the auction. Once again, in my opinion, way too many lots. And they should split it over 2 days. But, you know, Gardiner Houlgate and some of the French auctions like to kind of destroy people's minds with as many lots as possible, where I think it would be better if they had less. But anyway, that's the way it is. So we got through it. It was a lot longer than I expected. Some really interesting stuff in there for sure. Some other stuff which is kind of junk, but some interesting pianos, a few interesting kind of pluck strings and bowed strings and a few other anomalies in between, so definitely worth checking out. So I'll put a link in the description. Have a look at your own leisure, but remember the auction is finishing tomorrow. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Ciao. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.